Alright guys, welcome to The Last of Us 2 review. This is Pradeep. So, how are you all doing? Hope you're all doing good. Thank you all for those who have subscribed, for all the likes and comments. You guys are awesome. So, all those dark, disturbing moments are what makes The Last of Us Part 2 so powerful. It's not just a game about violence, it's one that grapples with the impact of that violence and shows players the consequences. The Last of Us Part 2 is a sequel to the acclaimed PlayStation 3 game which transformed developer Naughty Dog, then known primarily for lighter fare like the Uncharted series, into a studio able to tackle more serious and resonant stories. On the surface, the two games are similar. The original star Joel, a haunted man who latches on to 14-year-old Ellie as a daughter figure in a quest that sees them traverse a post-apocalyptic America in search of safety. It ends with him making a devastating choice to protect someone he cares about. The sequel is centered on Ellie, now 19 and settled in a relatively safe community in Wyoming. She has work, friends, she struggles with Joel's overprotective nature aside from the regular patrols to clear out infected monsters. It's almost idyllic. The first half of The Last of Us Part 2 feels like exactly what it is, an upgraded version of the original game. It's still a third person action adventure game where everything around you is dangerous. Seattle's many buildings are filled with unsettling zombie like creatures, ones that are blind and move by sound, forcing you to be quiet and slow, others that scream in a horrifyingly human way and will stop at nothing to kill you. The city is in a state of war. Two factions, a militant organization known as WLF and a religious group called the Seraphites, fight constantly over conflicting ideologies and limited resources. Ellie's quest puts her directly in the middle of this turmoil. Playing The Last of Us Part 2 is reminiscent of Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. Both games are essentially more robust and polished versions of their predecessors, and The Last of Us 2 borrows liberally from Nathan Drake's final adventure, from the wide open but linear levels to the combination of gunplay and stealth. Even the way you pick up objects and turn them over in your hands is identical. The difference is tone. While structurally and mechanically similar, the two games differ in terms of how they make you feel. Uncharted 4 is a sunny, light-hearted adventure with the occasional emotional breakthrough. The Last of Us 2 is its antithesis, dark and oppressive, with only rare, all too brief moments of hope. Much of your time is spent stalking around areas full of enemies, and these encounters differ quite a bit depending on who you're up against. Fighting against zombies is stressful. The sound designs makes the monsters almost particularly very scary, but killing inhuman creatures never made me feel guilty. People were a different story. There's heaviness to the combat. Things happen slowly and deliberately, giving you a chance to consider what you're doing. You can get by without killing some people, but no matter what, Ellie will kill a lot of people during your time with the game. Even worse with the trained dogs. Violence in games isn't anything new. There are plenty of titles that try to use brutality as a way to make players feel something or anything in a game. Whether it's Hotline Miami or Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto or Red Dead Redemption. What makes the sequel different is the way it makes you question your actions. You don't just kill people, you see the repercussions. The Last of Us Part 2 manages this in a few ways. For one, you can see the literal toll the experience takes on Ellie's body. By the end, she's a mess of blood and scars and other various ailments. She's a far cry from the curious teen she was in the first game, but the most powerful part of the story is how it shows both sides of the conflict. For the first half of the game, you see Ellie in the same light as any other video game hero. Sure, she has killed an unfathomable amount of people, but her pain is understandable. She's angry and scared and will do almost anything to make that feeling go away. She is convinced that killing a particular person will erase her guilty conscience from the perspective of everyone else. Though she is a terror, a ghost like killer, somehow making her way into heavily fortified places and leaving a trail of corpses in her wake. Things get cloudy. It's hard to say too much without delving into serious spoiler territory, but by the end, Ellie isn't the hero she thinks she is. She's not the same person she starts out as. The process isn't without issues. There's some dissonance between what happens in the game and what happens in the cutscenes. For instance, there are times when Ellie will kill a dozen people with little reaction during an action sequence, only to completely lose her composure after a single kill in a scripted cutscene. It's jarring. The game tries to up the ante in a very forced way by giving almost every non playable character a name. If you kill someone, you'll hear their friends calling for them as soon as they realize they are missing. There are other awkward moments when The Last of Us 2 attempts to cover its video gameness. As beautiful as the levels are, they are also very clearly designed with a specific purpose in mind. The platforming sections have lots of jumps and things to climb on, whereas combat areas are full of cover and tall grass to obscure Ellie's movements. You know what's coming by the layer of the world. Perhaps the most blatant example of this conflict between the game's desire to immerse you in its world and its inherent gamey nature is the passcodes, a video game staple. In order to open safes or certain locked doors, which you do a lot, Ellie will need to find the corresponding code, which is almost always scrawled down on a nearby piece of paper. This happens so often that it becomes comical. At one point, she even finds the code scrawled in blood on the floor. These aspects aren't inherently bad, and they're not unique to The Last of Us 2, but they stand out in a game otherwise so focused on immersion. When The Last of Us 2 does succeed, which is often it's incredible, the moment to moment action is tense and brutal. One of the best parts of the game is the boss fights. There are a handful of pivotal conflicts throughout the story, but they don't play out the way typical video game boss battles do. It's not about you facing the biggest, baddest enemy there is. Often you are the aggressor, the more powerful one, exerting your will on someone weaker or in a desperate situation. It turns the tables in a way that makes combat a key storytelling tool. That's not to say The Last of Us 2 is all gloom. There are light moments amid the dark. Many of these come in the form of flashbacks when you see Ellie and Joel in happier times, like exploring a museum or learning how to play the guitar. The story expertly uses these moments and specific objects to remind you of better times. You will see items pop up like a stuffed giraffe or a collectible coin that are linked to a specific memory, even in the midst of a ruined world. These moments still made me smile. Ellie is also thankfully not alone in her journey. Dina is a charismatic and honest counterpart to Ellie's more headstrong personality. Watching their relationship deepen is one of the few heartwarming parts of the story. It's also just nice to have her along the ride. The same goes for Jesse, another member of the Wyoming commune who tags along for extended parts of the story. The AI controlled companions aren't especially useful in combat, but their presence is reassuring nonetheless. But this isn't a story where Ellie simply gets her revenge and then rides off into the sunset with Tina. The Last of Us Part 2 does not have a happy ending. Again, it's hard to say too much without getting into direct spoiler territory, but her single minded focus on vengeance and her inability to let go cost her a great deal. All of those terrible things she had to do, the decapitated corpses, the bloody hammers, the dead dogs, had a price, and the fact that you are directly involved in those moments makes it all the more heartbreaking. So guys, thank you all for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed, share the video with your friends, comment down your thoughts in the comment section, and subscribe for more. This is Pradeep. I'll see you guys soon. You guys take care. Bye bye.